Hello Internet, my name is Tesler-Mabé, and today I'm going to give you my list of the top 8 coolest records I own, in no particular order because it was hard enough to choose what was on this list. Because I am in fact one of those people that collects records, much to the surprise of probably no one. From the perspective of a member of Generation Z, because I was born in 2001, I'm not at all surprised at the resurgence of vinyl in the past decade and a half. There's definitely a romanticized and maybe over-romanticized view of the past, but a lot of that comes from how much simpler and more grounded in reality the past feels in comparison to today. And I would posit that a lot of young people are really dealing with the angst of feeling like you can't really own anything anymore. And that's if you even can buy anything anymore, because increasingly most companies are adopting subscription-based models for everything. Long story short, it's a really wonderful feeling to actually be able to hold the music you love in your hands, and especially with the music of the past, actually hear it the way it was created to be listened to. So without further ado, here's my list, starting with Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. This was an incredibly generous gift from my dear friend Sammy, who found it at Piccadilly Circus in London because he knew it was one of my favorite albums of all time. It's an original pressing from 1966, and while Pet Sounds is celebrated amongst the greatest albums of all time now, it kind of bombed when it first came out, especially by the standards of the Beach Boys. And nowadays, most pressings of this album will be in stereo, but this is a true mono mix done by Brian Wilson himself. This is especially important in the case of an artist like Brian Wilson because he was deaf in one ear due to some horrible stuff in his childhood. So hearing this in mono is to listen to this record exactly the way he heard it and intended for it to be heard. Up next, Can't Buy a Thrill by Steely Dan. I have a couple of original pressing Steely Dan records, but this one is particularly special because I didn't fully realize what I was buying when I first found this record. I originally bought it for $12 during Record Store Day many years ago, and I wanted to find some cheap used pressing because I just wanted to be able to hear this album on vinyl. I found this one in quite nice condition, and I considered that to be a steal in and of itself. But I am one of those very nerdy people who logs their entire record collection on Discogs, so I can find out exactly what pressings I have, where it was pressed, how much it was worth, and imagine my surprise when I find out that this throwaway $12 used Steely Dan record was actually an original pressing worth quite a bit more than $12. Needless to say, I was pretty excited when I figured this out, and it definitely made me fall even more in love with going to record stores and thrift stores and hunting around just to see what kind of insane steals I could find like this. I'm a fool to do your dirty work, oh yeah. Now for the third entry on my list, we have Are You Experienced by the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So this is another example of me not fully understanding exactly how cool a record was until looking it up on Discogs. And I promise this is not an advertisement for Discogs. I just think it's super cool to be able to find out exactly what record you're holding in your hands. So my mom came back from a lovely trip to Vancouver Island and mentioned that she went to a record store. She apparently asked the owner of the store what to get for her daughter, who is a huge Jimi Hendrix fan, me, and she ended up getting this pressing of Are You Experienced? This is also one of my favorite albums ever, but I already had a nice 180-gram nerdy audiophile pressing from 2010 that I loved listening to all the time. So I was super grateful to my mom, but I kind of shrugged it off because my mom didn't really know what made this particular vinyl so special beyond it being an album that I really loved. So this was a few months before I started logging my collection, so I was pretty knocked out when I checked a few months later and found out that this was a second pressing from the original year that the album came out. So while it's not an original pressing, having a 1967 pressing of the debut Jimi Hendrix Experience album is kind of insane. I would love to play you some music from this album, but I already know that this would get the entire video demonetized, and let's just move on to the next entry on my list, which is Live in Cook County Jail by the great B.B. King. Another one of my favorite albums ever, this was one of the albums that really influenced me, especially when I was first learning the guitar. I remember being in Toronto and going to this vintage clothing store somewhere underground. Like literally it was underground. You had to walk down a very long flight of stairs to get there, and they had a selection of records in the back of the store. I recall seeing this particular record from across the store sitting on a shelf, and I walked straight to it. My sights were totally set, and the guy behind the desk told me that it was an original 1971 pressing. And not only that, it was an original pressing with the infamous denim textured jacket. Like if you touch it, it really kind of does feel like denim. And I always dreamed about finding this, but never thought that I actually would. For those who are not familiar with this record, it is, in my opinion, one of the greatest live performances of all time, or certainly one of the greatest I've ever heard, and B.B. King literally went and performed at a Chicago jail. It is so nuts. You can hear the audience booing the jail administration when they're introduced at the start of the show, and B.B. King sounds outrageously good. And another addition to my list that I found at this same Toronto vintage store, the 7-inch vinyl extracts from the film A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. I always dreamed about having an original pressing of a Beatles vinyl, and this is the real thing. A mono pressing from 1964, straight from the UK. I'm not sure what else to say about this record other than it's easily one of the coolest things in my possession, and it's a collection of 4 great tracks off of A Hard Day's Night. You've got I Shoulda Known Better, If I Fell, Tell Me Why, and I Love Her. Yeah, I was so happy when I found this.
You'd love her too, I love her.
Moving right along, the record itself isn't anything too special other than being a collection of amazing songs I love, but the story behind it kinda is. This is Fleetwood Mac Greatest Hits. So here's how the story goes. We were in Lahaina, Maui many years ago, over a decade ago at least. I feel so grateful to the locals that I was able to visit then because it truly is heaven on earth there. Before the tragic Lahaina fire in Maui a few years ago, Mick Fleetwood of Fleetwood Mac had a restaurant there right by the water. It was my family's favorite restaurant because they always had fantastic musicians play there. The food was amazing. And there was a little shop downstairs where you could purchase wines and other really nice things. We were down in the shop when all of a sudden Mick Fleetwood himself walked in and announced that he'd be happy to do a quick meet and greet for the few people present. So I grabbed the first record I saw and I got him to sign it for me. He ended up playing an intimate show in his restaurant later that night, so needless to say, the whole story surrounding this record is like the coolest thing ever. And it all happened right when I was starting to get very serious about playing the guitar, and I can't even state enough how unbelievably inspiring this whole experience was for me. Next on my list, we have Roadhouse, the original motion picture soundtrack. Once again, the story of this record is why it's so special to me. Years ago, I did an interview where I was asked about my favorite guitar solos of all time, and one of the ones I mentioned was Jeff Healey's guitar work on his track See the Light, which is some of the most outrageous and awesome guitar playing I've ever heard in my life. And later that year, I had the opportunity to do an interview with the one and only Nardwuar with my Teenage What the Hell Is Even Happening band, Calpurnia. And during the interview with Nardwuar, he mentioned that he knew of my appreciation of Jeff Healey. Because of course he would know that.
What? Wait.
The government not hired you yet.
He generously gifted me this sick original pressing of the Roadhouse soundtrack, which Jeff Healey's guitar playing is all over.
Keep the change. Roadhouse.
As an aside, Nardwuar is such a beautiful and genuinely lovely human being. Even years after my Teenage What the Hell Is Even Happening band Calpurnia ended, and the last time I ran into him at Neptune Records here in Vancouver, I had my record with me to drop a couple pressings off at the store. And I don't usually do stuff like this, but I just thought I had to take the opportunity to ask him to take a picture with me and my vinyl, because it was such a big moment to celebrate having my own music pressed to vinyl for the first time. When I asked him, he instead suggested that we make a little video and just talk about my vinyl, and I thought that was super, super sweet of him.
Celebrating release of
Let Me Out, my first EP.
And please do.
Alright, for my final selection on this list, we have Jaime by Brittany Howard. For those who are not familiar with Brittany Howard, she is the frontwoman and primary songwriter for Alabama Shakes, who are easily one of my favorite bands of the last decade. And Brittany Howard is just genuinely one of the coolest artists of this time, probably of all time. So in 2019, Brittany Howard released her debut solo record, Jaime, which delved a little further into gospel and R&B than the rootsy soul rock of Alabama Shakes. But just like Alabama Shakes stuff, it's all over the board in terms of genre. I absolutely adore this album. It's easily one of my favorite albums probably ever. So imagine my absolute shock when my band Ludic got the call to open for Brittany Howard on her tour for this album on their stop in Vancouver. So I already had this album on vinyl, obviously, but I figured I'd bring it with me to the show just in case the opportunity arose to get a couple signatures. Brittany and her entire touring band were so kind and so warm, and after our set we got to watch side stage as some of the best musicians ever tore it up and played one of the most awesome albums literally just meters away from me. Like, Nate Smith was literally 2.5 meters away from me. That alone made this one of the most special nights of my life already, but after the show, the moment felt right and I got the whole touring band to sign my record. Nate Smith, Zach Cockrell, who also plays bass in Alabama Shakes, and of course Brittany Howard herself. Not to mention, this is the beautiful sandstone vinyl. So cool. And before anyone asks, yes, Ludic is still together. Max and Rhett and I are still writing and recording, and you aren't even ready for the enormous pile of music we are going to dump on you in 2026. It is coming. It is happening. I promise you. Anyways, that brings us to the end of this video, and I hope that you had fun because I know that I did. I wanted to do something a little different today, tell some stories about music that inspires me, about some of my experiences in the music industry, and let me know down below if you liked this style of video, if you hated this style of video, if you were neutral about this style of video, and any other topics you want me to cover. I am honestly so open to suggestions. And as always, if you like this video, please refrain from subscribing because I'm trying to become the least subscribed person on YouTube. Thank you. Bye.